Game 2 is in the rearview mirror. Game 3 is here. One of these two teams has a chance to seize control of this series. The Guardians are going to turn to a guy who hasn't pitched in over a month and hasn't pitched in a postseason game in 11 years. The Tigers, well, we don't know who they're going with. Johnny Holstaff. All I know is we're going to stop trying to predict how this is going to go. We're just going to try to talk through this one.
You are Locked On Guardians, your daily podcast on the Cleveland Guardians. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You know, if it's not Johnny Holstaff, maybe it'll be that Toby named later guy who pitches for the Tigers. Today's episode is brought to you by Booking.com. Booking.com, the right state can make you a fan of any city, even your baseball rivals. Book today on Booking.com, the official accommodation partner of Major League Baseball. Get the Booking.com app today.
On today's show, we're going to look ahead to Game 3 of the ALDS. We are not going to try to predict anything. We're just going to preview it. We will talk about the Guardians' pitching game plan between Alex Cobb and the bullpen, what the Tigers might do if the Guardians' lineup can get things going, and keys to Game 3. And if you're asking questions about the Guardians' new TV situation, stick around to the end of the show. We will cover the TV situation as well.
Yeah, I pulled some numbers. I tried to crunch some things today on that. But first, for those who do not know me, I'm Jeff Ellis, one of your two co-hosts here. I've been here since the inception of the Locked On Network when it comes to baseball. Before that, I was nationally recognized as a draft and prospect analyst at Scott 24/7, as well as your fourth favorite blogger at every Cleveland sports blog that has or will exist.
I'm Justin Latta. I have not been nationally recognized anywhere at any point, but I have been locally recognized, I suppose, by some of you at times, but also at Guardians Baseball Insider, the Morning Journal, the News Herald, all kinds of other places. At one time, I remember writing about the World Series at Burning River Baseball, and it was back in 2016, obviously, because the Guardians haven't been back to the World Series since then. And I thought up 3-1, the Guardians' mindset was finish the series in 5, don't let it come back to Cleveland, because they couldn't afford to do that. And I feel like Cleveland's in the same spot here. We talked about it yesterday, not getting back to Game 5 in Cleveland. Even though Cleveland has home field advantage, Tarek Skubal makes it a neutral advantage. A lot of people are wondering how the Guardians are feeling after their Game 2 loss. I meant to bring it up on Tuesday's show. We obviously are not at the stadium covering these games, but I did have a friend who, our buddy Troy over on the radio side of things. I talked to him after the game, and everybody seemed pretty good. And from what we heard from Stephen Vogt after the game in Game 2, seemed pretty calm. Just said, he said, we've lost like this before. I mean, not this exact game. We've lost in a scenario before. They haven't lost in it much, and they certainly never lost the way they did on Monday, the way Class A went. But they seem the same as all year. Like we talked to Andre before the playoffs started, right? And we said, Vogt got them through a tough month of August because he showed up every day and said, we're going to be fine. We're going to be fine. He wasn't concerned, and they were fine. They did come through on the other side of this, and they're taking the same exact approach now. All of the stuff from workout day, all the audio I was able to access, all the interviews with Vogt, with Quan, with Cobb the other day, they all seem fine. They don't seem up against it or anything. It just seems like it's another normal game, another normal scenario.
It stinks, but that was a game that they kind of, if we're being honest, did we really, it was a game that we kind of expected them to lose. So I also think to a degree of it stinks. It's frustrating. I'm still frustrated by it. But if we're really talking in our heart of hearts, there's a decent chance that you never really, that you kind of always expected to enter Game 3 1-1 in the whole freaking postseason. Everyone is 1-1 right now. So it's not some huge win. Detroit barely got through. Yeah, they beat Class A, but anyone who's watched this team for a while knows that Class A has weird batted ball luck. That's why a year ago he had 12 blown saves, the most ever by a Cleveland Guardian. It stinks. The bad luck happened this time, but I'm not the number of overzealous Tigers fans in our comments, and then B, the number of sad sack Guardians fans were both highly annoying. So I'm going to apologize to anyone where my comments came off wrong, because I just got tired of dealing with it. It was why is it every time that something goes minorly wrong, the sky is falling, the season is over, they should the team is garbage, people, it's it's a fun team. We had fun all year with them. It is a well-built team. Like, it's Detroit's throwing a bullpen game tomorrow. Remember last time that happened? Guardians had 7 runs. I'm not saying it's going to happen again, but like it, do I have to start pulling Animal House and saying like, was it over when I won't. But like, have a little faith in your team if you've enjoyed watching them this year, and if you're a Tigers fan, like, hey, yeah, you should be excited. It's a fun team. But I just can we all be a little nicer?
Yeah. Let's move on to game 3. Game 2 is out of the, in the rearview mirror. Time to move forward. I will say, not to bring the room down, the Alex Cobb thing definitely puts things up in the air. He hasn't pitched in a game since September 1st. I guess the good news is before September 1st, he missed 2 weeks with that broken fingernail, and he came off the injured list on September 1st, and he threw 6 perfect innings against the Pittsburgh Pirates. Now, I know the Tigers aren't the Pirates, but then it was only 2 weeks versus now this has been a month. We'll see. So Cobb's thrown 2 simulated games since then, and the last one I heard was, I think I said yesterday, it was in the 35 pitch range. That was the first one. Now the second one is more in the 50 to 50 pitch range. So I think you're really looking at 60 to 70 pitches at Cobb, realistically.
I don't even know if it's that many.
Well, if he threw 50 in a sim, I would say you could probably say you can. It's going to depend. Like, obviously, you're hoping for 50 pitches, and then you're going to have to evaluate where you are in the lineup and what's happened to that point and see if you can get him to 60 or 70. And really, it's not even pitches, right? It's how many times can he get up and down? How efficient can he be? Because if you can get into the 4th inning with 50 pitches, that may be enough. Matthew Boyd did more than enough, too. We'll have to talk about the bullpen, too, because this is going to become a big factor in Game 3 for Cleveland, because Game 4 is the only back-to-back in the series, and they haven't used anybody else except their big 4 besides one out from Eli Morgan in Game 2. So we have to see how they're going to approach this, which we'll talk about. But I would say, yeah, Cobb, 50 to 60 pitches. I think, again, you're going 2 times through the order max. You're hoping he gets 2 times through the order max, and that's going to be it. I would be stunned. Now, because he's a right-hander and Kerry Carpenter is going to be the top of that lineup on Game 3, you can almost expect there's no chance Kerry Carpenter seeing him a 3rd time.
Yeah.
My only concern here is just Alex Cobb hasn't pitched in forever, and he's had a very bumpy season when it comes to injuries. The numbers have been pretty good. He's on the mound. He threw, 1 bad pitch against the Twins in his, 1st or 2nd start with Cleveland. He does have postseason experience. I know it was 11 years ago, and he does have – is there an advantage? I shouldn't say does he. Does he have an advantage that the fact the Tigers have never seen him? Matt Vierling has 1 plate appearance. Andy Ibanez has 3, and I don't think Ibanez is going to be in the lineup for this game. So maybe that creates an advantage for Alex Cobb. It's kind of both ways, right? Like, it could go either way with him, with the time off, not knowing how long he can go, but also the fact that they haven't seen him before. My other concern here is Cobb's pitch mix, which is splitter, sinker, curve, knuckle curve, whatever that's worth. The Tigers do very well against. That's what concerns me, is that he is very, very sinker heavy. The Tigers are a good sinker hitting team. He throws a lot of splitters. A couple of guys in that team hit splitters okay. One of them is Kerry Carpenter, so fantastic. A bunch of them hit knuckle curves fairly well. One of them is not Kerry Carpenter, so you can expect Kerry Carpenter to see a ton of curveballs, I would think, but a couple other guys hit curveballs well. So it's not a pitch mix I'm really in love with versus the Tigers. He's a ground ball pitcher, though, and that's maybe a good thing. The Guardians have one of the best infield defenses in baseball, and it's a big ballpark. So if they do get one in the air, maybe it won't go out, and it's just a lot of space to run out there. So I don't know. I'm very on the edge about this matchup for Alex Cobb versus the Tigers.
Yeah, I mean, I look at it as a situation with Cobb where he's just gonna kind of be a fresh look for them. The interesting thing is, like you say, they're good against sinkers. When I dove into Savant data and did batter run value versus sinkers, they're the 2nd worst team in baseball. So as a team, they've actually been terrible against sinkers at a negative 0.9. Cleveland is not good against sinkers, we talked about earlier. They're 25th ranked in baseball at a negative 0.4. So the Tigers, their expected WOBA is a little bit higher than what their WOBA's been. So, they've been a little bit unlucky against sinkers, but the other thing is that they, it's a lower pitch percentage for them. But yeah, according to the data I pulled against sinkers in particular, and I'm sure, if people are out there like, well, why are they going to him? I think maybe they're looking at things like this. I think that is part of the situation and going to him is that there's, we've discussed in the past with like the one thing with WOBA is it's more about like why things have happened and less about what it's not doesn't feel predictive, I guess is what I would say. As often as other pitches. He's split finger for the other one mostly. Those two were the main ones. And against the split finger this year, just to do a quick up and pull on this, Detroit was ranked. By the way, the Phillies the best team against the sinker. Detroit is 12th and Cleveland is 13th against split fingers. So I think we'll probably see a lot of the sinker tomorrow.
Yeah, looking at the numbers I pulled up on Savant. So Riley Green hits them very well. Carpenter does. I think what might be tainting some of your data is Gio Urshela was really good against.
But I mean, this is like 23,000 pitches faced. It's a large amount. No one guy can tilt it. It's just as a team, they're not good against it.
Well, two of their best hitters against the sinker were Mark Canha and Gio Urshela, who are both gone. So that that factors in a little bit. But yeah, if you get past Carpenter and Green,
that wouldn't affect this data because this is just their data versus the pitch when they played for the team. This is the Tigers' overriding data. So that means if anything,
who's on the team now? Not.
It's not about who's on the team now. It's about what they did against it this year.
Right. So that includes Urshela and Canha.
Yeah.
So that's going to affect it.
Yeah.
So after you get past McKinstry, does pretty well against it. Carpenter, Green. Wenzel Perez, who probably won't be in the lineup. Maybe he will because he gets splitters well. So I don't know. That might be a factor. But after you get past that, Parker Meadows, Vierling, Colt Keith, Torkelson, and Rogers are not great against it. So you've got a number of hitters who aren't good against it, but their two most important hitters, Green and Carpenter, are really good against splitters. So sinkers. That's my only concern.
The other, if I put his three pitches together and look at data, Detroit is the third worst team in baseball against that combined set of pitches. Only Pittsburgh and the White Sox were worse this past year in terms of production. And their xWOBA was actually pretty low as well in that stat category. That was actually they were 28th overall. So it's 20, 30, 20, 27th. So yeah, I think that's why Cleveland's doing it. I think those two guys might hit it, but if you can do a better job, they are, but at the same time, if you do a better job of facing the other guys, so you don't have that situation with Class A with the two hits at the bottom of the lineup, it helps you take care of business, which helps keep those guys in situations where no one's on, or, helps you turn that lineup over more times. Like if it's going to eliminate, because that's the thing, like Carpenter's home run doesn't matter nearly as much if it wasn't the two guys on base, which is, I know,
Correct.
A dumb statement to say, but like just in terms of a big
That's
picture,
true.
I think he is there because he's going to limit most of the guys in that lineup.
Just shows you that you can always find ways to chop up data to fit a narrative or find a way to spin something or make things look a little bit different. That's what it tells you right there. We're going to tell you in a little bit we'll tell you more about the Guardians bullpen plan for game 3. We think that's going to look like, and more stuff on Cobb versus the Tigers lineup. Talk about keys to game 3, not predictions, just keys. We think are keys, not predictions, because we've proven very, very handily here.
My prediction is pain. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, prediction is whatever we predict would be wrong. So we're not going to go there again. But we've got that and the Guardians' new TV situation all on the way for you on the rest of today's episode.
But first, let's talk about our good friends over at FanDuel. Hey, right now you have an advantage with FanDuel, right? The Tigers, we don't even know who's starting for them. That's got to be advantageous in terms of odds. At least yesterday when I checked, Cleveland was a 1.5 run favorite. Take that what you will. If you are a confident Tigers fan, we've had a lot of those in our comments, then you should be definitely jumping at 1.5. If you're a confident Guardians fan, then you should be doing the same. Either way, that sets up perfectly for you, right? Because none of these games have been close. I mean, 3 is relatively close, but no one has been within a one-run game. Hey, NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you can check the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com.
The playoffs are here. Tickets are expensive and they're hard to find. You want to find a good deal to get in the game, but you don't want to go way over your budget, or you want to know exactly how much you're going to pay without being fooled. You need a partner like Game Time. Game Time has Game Time picks, makes getting tickets for all your favorite live events even easier, even the playoffs. Filters out all the other deals so you don't have to look through thousands of tickets. It's going to show you exactly what the amazing deals are, what the super deals are, just compared to what you could be spending. And then if you turn on all-in pricing for the app too, it's going to tell you what you're going to pay to get in the door of the event, whether it's a playoff game, whether you're going to preseason basketball, preseason hockey, concerts. I'll tell you right now, next year, I'm spending a ton of money on concerts. I want to go see Linkin Park. I want to see 3 Days Grace. They've got their lineups back together. My wife wants to go see Teddy Swims. I will be using Game Time because all of those tickets are going to be expensive. It's not just for playoff tickets. It's for concerts. It's comedy shows. She loves to go to comedy shows too. So I'm always on the Game Time app to see what pricing I can get out of all those events. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download Game Time, create your account, use our code LOCKDOWNMLB, and you're going to get $20 off your first purchase on top of all of the other benefits I just talked about with Game Time. Terms apply, but create the account and redeem our code if you haven't yet. LOCKEDONMLB. Get $20 off your first purchase. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It is game time. The DS series have all been crazy. They're all tied 1-1 as of Tuesday night.
Oh, got 2-1 with the Mets, right?
The Mets are up 2-1. They're all 1-1 coming into Tuesday. The Dodgers and Padres are on as we're recording this. That game's been crazy. If you want the national perspective and all the craziness that comes along with it, with a little bit of humor and some really good trivial knowledge that'll make you sound smart with your friends, head over to Lockdown MLB with our pal Sully. Always presents it that way. You always get some fun knowledge. You always get a little bit of humor. You always get a nice 1,000-foot view of all this stuff. Part of the Lockdown Podcast Network, your team every day. As far as the bullpen goes, I think this is so we said we weren't going to predict things, but I would assume this is probably the game we see Gavin Williams. I can't imagine they're saving him for anything else. I think he hasn't pitched in forever. I haven't even looked the last time he pitched, but this seems like the game you want to go to him because you got Tanner on Thursday. You can use Gavin to bridge to the bullpen without having to burn guys a little bit too early, keep your advantages late. So if you can get Cobb through 2 times through the order, and depending on how far that gets him, I mean, like I said, when Riley Green or whoever leads off for them, I think it's going to, or who's their leadoff hitter usually? It's Parker Meadows.
Meadows in one game, wasn't it? And then
I'm sorry, Meadows. Yeah, so
Meadows will probably lead off tomorrow, I think.
When you get back to Meadows a third time, I can almost guarantee there's no reason to keep Cobb in because he doesn't have the lefty advantage like Boyd. So you don't need to do that to keep Kerry
I'm not
Carpenter
even
out of the
sure,
game.
honestly, if Cobb's going to go more than one time through the order.
Yeah, it's depending on how many pitches he needs to throw. That's the thing. He needs to be sharp in order to do that.
When you got Williams
50
sitting
pitches
there,
could be 3 innings, and that might be one time through.
Yeah.
As far as we know. So you're going to probably need Gavin Williams in this game. And we did have one of our everydayers point out that Gavin Williams has had great numbers against the Tigers this year. That's great. You got now you're talking about 2 guys who just haven't pitched in forever. And Cobb's had a weird season. Gavin Williams had a weird season too. And maybe that's what the Guardians need. This has been a weird series already, right? The playoffs have been weird across the board, which maybe that's just the nature of October, right? But the Guardians going to 2 guys who have been hurt all year and have had weird stop and start seasons, but they've had good moments too. And they've both shown throughout their history, Cobb a little bit longer and Gavin a little bit shorter. They're able to go out there and shut lineups down. I'll be very curious to see what they do with Gavin, but I can almost guarantee he's going to be in. The question, Jeff, is when does Gavin come in? Because what Cleveland could do if they trust Sabrowski or Joey Cantillo in this game, when you get back to the top of the order with Parker Meadows and Kerry Carpenter, do you bring out a lefty and you that might be the third inning, right? That could be as early as the third inning. Do you challenge AJ Hinch and say, okay, we're bringing in a lefty. Are you going to stick with Parker Meadows and Kerry Carpenter? Are you going to pull the plug on them early? Or I think Meadows starts no matter what, I'm guessing. Well, no, did he start? Yeah, he was the bottom of the order. He'll still stay in the game. But do you stick with Kerry Carpenter?
He's pretty much every game.
Yeah, because of his defense. So do you stick with your lefties with Kerry Carpenter there if you bring a lefty in the third or fourth inning, or do you pull the plug early and see if Hinch pulls them out, and then that way you don't have him the rest of the game? I'm very curious to see how they play that.
I don't think they'll pull him. So
you'll let him face the lefty. That's why.
So you one time through, you let him face one time through. You don't. He's their best. Riley Green is fantastic as well. They have 2 stellar hitters, and then a lot of guys who are questionable. So it feels a lot like Cleveland. We know that well here. So I think once he is in to stay is kind of what I believe. But at the same time, you do get a pretty good advantage. And it also the other, like I've talked about this, like against the lefties, Riley Green goes from Bryce Harper to average. Like he has a pronounced split as well. So it's like, I could see though getting through the lineup once and then bringing in a Sabrowski for that inning to maybe face those guys, and then you pull them and you bring back in a righty. And
that's why you carry 3 lefties in this series.
That's why you have all these lefties. You might as well use them. Like it's smart to do that. Like we're not quite team chaos like Detroit is, but like there's value in just pitching to the matchup. Now at the same time, Cleveland wasn't, and for those being like, well, how bad can Kerry Carpenter be versus lefties? He has a 176 weighted RC plus against right-hand pitching. That's 5th best in baseball this year. His versus lefties is an 18. So
he's Austin Hedges against lefties, basically.
Austin Hedges has a higher value than that. Austin Hedges for the year, and I can't spell apparently. That's no surprise to anyone who knows my dyslexic mind. Austin Hedges, for those at home this year, his weighted runs created plus was a 20 this year. So Austin Hedges has hit better over the course of the season than Kerry Carpenter does versus a lefty. So
close, but yeah,
it's close, but yeah. So that's the thing. Like it's just so pronounced, and that's why they're arguably their best hitter doesn't play versus them. So yeah, lean into that. Have second time. I almost feel like the second time Carpenter is going to be up, you should just go get a lefty, and then you bring in Williams, and then you let Williams pitch through, and you see how he's pitching. I was trying to pull up the stat cast to compare his top 3 pitches versus Detroit to see how it works out. But yeah, I think for me personally, it's like Cobb pitches until Kerry Carpenter's due back up, and then I do go get Sabrowski.
Yeah, it's Sabrowski if there's runners on. Maybe if it starts the inning, you can bring in Joey Cantillo. But I think Sabrowski makes a little more sense because Cantillo might be your emergency length guy. So maybe Sabrowski's the better fit, and you want to save Heron for a little bit later. But yeah, that allows you to continue to pull on the left-handed matchups at the top of the order against Parker Meadows, against Kerry Carpenter, against Riley Green. So that does help. You're right. I will say this for Gavin Williams, anybody who's concerned about him, we're talking about just neutralizing the Tigers' best part of the order. Gavin Williams' average fastball this year is 96 miles an hour. The Tigers have a hard time with hard fastballs. So if he comes out there and throws hard at the top of the zone, none of their hitters do particularly well with heaters at the top of the zone. Colt Keith does well with heaters at the top of the zone. Everybody else after that is not good. So if Gavin comes in and spots the fastball at the top of the zone, nobody on this Tigers team really does all that well against curveballs. It's Spencer Torkelson and Matt Vierling, who both struggle against high heat. Everybody else, including Kerry Carpenter, does not do well against curveballs. So in theory, the best hitters in the order, Gavin Williams has some success against if he locates. The same thing as Emmanuel Clase. It comes all down to execution. But the pitch mix there, I think, will be, at least to the best hitters against the Tigers, will be for Gavin is high fastballs and then the curveball.
Yeah, when you look at the pitch mix, his main 3 pitches this year were the 4-seam, the cutter, and the curve. Detroit was actually tied with Cleveland at a 0 overall score against those 3 pitches. So though Gavin pitched very well against Detroit, but yeah, that in general, that is actually looks like a less productive pitch mix is his top 3. It says the slider 4th for Gavin this year on Savant, but I felt like we really didn't see that slider that when the slider popped on Savant
Well,
this
we know
year,
Savant had a hard time classifying
the slider
what was the
versus
cutter, and
the curve.
Gavin clarified this too, and
Yeah.
media availability during the DS. He had said that it's not really a cutter; it's supposed to be a slider, but he said he was having a hard time with the grip, and he was getting on top of it too much. So, like, there is a little bit of it being a cutter, but also he was having a hard time with the pitch grip. So, some of that might have been due. We talked to injury and all that kind of stuff. But when he's thrown the slider, it's been very good. The cutter has also been very good too. So even though he hasn't pitched in a while and he's had some shaky moments this year, I have a lot of faith in Gavin Williams, and I think he's another guy. He can take you a time through the order, and that might give you. If Gavin gets you a time through the order, that might be 3 innings, and that could be pretty good.
And like by Savant value, that cutter was his best pitch this year by a significant margin. Like it's the only one that had a positive run value. So it just comes down to, and as we saw with him, I think the bugaboo, and I know we got to run to break here, is more that consistency. We never know which Gavin we're getting. Like sometimes we get the Gavin who's absolutely untouchable, and he's hitting that cutter, and the other times he does struggle with the grip. And then you have a guy who's in the postseason, you may only face a handful of batters. Hopefully it's more, and he might be a guy who benefited from a little more time off, honestly, with some of the health and other issues this year in Detroit. For those who are curious to know, negative 0.4 against the cutter. Not as bad as Cleveland. Cleveland is atrocious versus a cutter, but Detroit was tied for 22nd in baseball versus the cutter. So there's reasons why Gavin was successful.
Yeah, I'd be curious to see with him how amped up he is, and the fact that he's coming out of the bullpen. In some case, I don't think they'll bring him into the middle of an inning, so there is that.
No.
So, but he will be amped up. Maybe he'll get some extra juice, just knowing they're going to ask him to go 9 hitters max, probably, and that hopefully that's 3 innings. Who knows? It could be 2 innings at the very least. So we'll see. We will get into the Tigers pitching plans, which honestly we don't know much about at this time. We will talk about keys to Game 3 and the Guardians' new TV situation, all on the way. Guys, already know today's episode of Locked On Guardians is brought to you by Booking.com. Booking.yeah. Maybe you want to be in Detroit for Game 4 if the Guardians can clinch this thing and not let it come back to Cleveland. Maybe you want to get a hotel in Kansas City just in case the Guardians are playing the Royals in the ALCS. That series is tied 1-1 as well. It's going to be a fun ending to all of these division series, and Booking.com is the way to go to make your plans to get hotels in New York, in Kansas City, in Detroit for Game 4, maybe LA, maybe San Diego. I don't know. This series is wild too. Booking.com, though, is definitely your best friend when it comes to trying to find the right fit in each of these U.S. cities that you want to learn more about. Hotels, bed and breakfast, all that kind of good stuff. You can find everything you want and more in all these postseason games in baseball. Booking.com will deliver the exactly right stay in the U.S. for you. The right stay, as we know, can make you a fan of any U.S. city, even Detroit, even your baseball rivals. Booking.com, booking.yeah. 3:08 first pitch today. If you're listening to this after, you missed it. But if you haven't, check your SiriusXM app, download that app. Search Guardians to find the broadcast starting at 3:08 if you're making us your morning listen. And thank you for being here to get ready for Game 3. Let's talk about the keys to Game 3. So we have no idea who's starting for the Tigers. We're going to stop trying to predict things on the show because obviously it goes poorly. It's going to be a mishmash again of the Tigers bullpen. It's going to be the lefties. They're going to bring out the lefties, right? They're going to bring in at some point Tyler Holton. You're probably going to see Brant Herter and Sean Gunther, who the Guardians haven't really seen. If all goes well for the Tigers, you get Bo Brisky and Will Vest. They're hoping that's going to be enough to get them through the game, honestly. And Brennan Hanafy's in that list. We do know that the probable starter likely for Thursday is Reese Olson. So,
or Tyler Holton leading into Olson. They might keep that going. It didn't work one game, but you don't give up on something.
Yeah, they might.
Game.
They could go that way too. That's another way to go. And they want to try to make the Guardians lineup as off kilter as they possibly can. So yeah, it's going to be a whole bullpen effort though. Maybe the Guardians will get their first look at Jackson Jobe. He struggled in Houston. Will he be better? He's certainly got the talent. So I'm definitely nervous about that. We'll see how the Tigers will manage that. My biggest question in this game for the Guardians is how they're going to manage the bullpen, because if we think that it's going to be one time through the order for Cobb, we talked about going to Gavin. So hopefully the idea is Cobb, 9 batters, Sabrowski to Meadows and Carpenter, and hopefully he gets through Matt Vierling. We'll see how they do there, depending on when he comes in. And this is all if it goes according to plan. And then you can maybe get Gavin for 2 innings, and maybe that gets you into the 5th inning. The question for me is, are we going to see guys like we're talking about already seeing Sabrowski and Williams, who we haven't seen this series? Are you going to get a look at Andrew Walters? Are you going to try to push K to the back of the game and then try to push? You got to save Herron for the top of the order and try to challenge the Tigers to pinch hit for Kerry Carpenter, because that's the matchup you want. I'll be curious to see if Cleveland can continue to outmaneuver, because I feel like until Class A couldn't get Rogers and Sweeney in game 2, they've had the advantage in neutralizing Carpenter. He had 1 at bat in game 2, and he wasn't expected to get a 3rd at bat, 2nd at bat until Class A couldn't get the 8-9 guys out. So the Guardians have done, I feel like, a good job neutralizing Carpenter for the most part. Can they do it again in this game? And that's going to be the big question. And is a Tim Herron versus, Andy Ibanez matchup, or is that better than whoever right-handed versus Kerry Carpenter? I would say yes. Agree. Yeah. So we'll see if Vogt continues to pull that string. That's my big thing. Will the lineup rebound? I mean, look, hitting a bullpen game, it can be hard. It's not ideal, but the Tigers have been doing this since August, and it's worked for them. And not getting multiple looks off one pitcher can be tough. The Guardians didn't really struggle with it in game 1 because they bounced Tyler Holden pretty quick. They got a home run off Reese Olson. They added on late, which was, again, important. But they've got to be able to come out and hit, because the magic number is 4, right? They have to hit. It doesn't matter what Alex Cobb does. Doesn't matter how Stephen Vogt uses this great bullpen. If they don't hit, they have to hit.
Yeah. I think one of those things that definitely stands out is it's, just looking at how the team's been, and everyone is so fixated on like what they can't do because of one game against the best pitcher in baseball. So like, let's take 2 steps back. And here's the other thing too, like the Detroit's best reliever is Will Vest, who followed Scooble. Like they literally faced the 2 best pitchers right now. Eventually it might be Jackson Joe, but as you said, he looks phenomenal. But right now they're 2 best pitchers they faced in that game. Detroit threw all of their ammunition, and it worked. But like, I'm also a little bit less like doom and gloom about the lineup, because they faced Will Vest. I've said it on the show before, for every Tigers fan who's getting mad at me, it's like Kerry Carpenter is the most underrated hitter in baseball. I said that before the series began. Will Vest is probably the most underrated reliever in the American League. He's what Twins fans wish Griffin Jacks was. Man, I'm just going to tick off the entire Central. But, it's they faced a really tough lineup. And yeah, you want to take care of business, and it didn't happen. But at the same time, Vest will likely appear tomorrow if it's close again, if Detroit's up. But also, I think you need to take 2 steps back and realize, they have a bad game against the best on the planet right now.
Will Vest, the Tigers certainly hope so. My other thing is get a lead early. I think it's important for Cleveland to get a lead early, because hopefully Cobb goes out and throws up a 0 in the first inning, and however long he can go. But if you can do what you did in game 1, not necessarily 5 runs before recording it out, but if you can get a run or 2, you maybe put the crowd on edge a little bit. And
I mean, if Fry doesn't hit in that double play, I still think the entire game changes, just because they had the lead and they're pitching from a different situation, and the pressure's off a little. I think for this team and with everything that's happened, if they actually had the lead there.
Other key for me, I think, is Jose. I said it in game 2, and he didn't come through. Scooble had him. They need a big game from Jose. He has had Tigers pitching well all year. Historically, he's done it all. I know it doesn't really matter in this series because the pitching matchups are different, but they need a big game from Jose if they're going to win, I think, in this one, because he had Lane Thomas get the big blow in game 1. Nobody came through in game 2. Naylor's had a big hit. I know the Jose's grounder in game 1 got changed to a double, but that's really the only damage he's done in the series. So they need Jose to show up. And I said it game 2. I need to say it to game 3. I think they need to push deep into the pen too, because, whatever the plan is for game 4 for the Tigers is, Reese Olson and some relievers, however they're going to do that. If you can get into that bullpen in game 3, I know working back-to-backs is not a big deal, and the Tigers have been doing this all year, but the more you force them to use those relievers, the more you see them, the better it's going to be in general. So hopefully you can get them unrested on Wednesday. So you go into Thursday and you've seen them, and you've gotten them, you've forced them to work. That's going to be important. So whoever the opener is in this one, I think you got to attack early, and I'd imagine whatever they'll do will be the ambush lineup again, which is going to be, if it's a lefty, it'll be David Fry. If it's a righty, it'll be Kyle Manzardo, and that's my next point. Kyle Manzardo needs to work into this game for more than a couple at bats. He's gotten a pinch hit appearance in game 1 and 2, and he almost hit a home run in game 2, which could have changed things. Or at least it could have been a double if Parker Meadows wasn't an all-world center fielder. They got to find a way to get more than one at bat out of Kyle Manzardo, and give the Tigers credit for as much as Cleveland wanted to keep Kerry Carpenter neutralized and on the bench. It looks like the Tigers have tried to do the same thing with Manzardo, so he has not been a factor. Cleveland needs to find him a way to become a factor.
Yeah. So we got a little bit. We're trying to keep him under 40 in general. Ready to transition to a little bit of money talk. Do you want me just to dive through the numbers I crunched?
Yeah, I'll just run through a couple more keys and we'll get into that. So Tigers unfamiliar versus Cobb. How much does that matter? Cleveland's got to keep Riley Green quiet because he has not had a big series. And don't let the bottom of the order beat you. Don't let Jake Rogers and Trey Sweeney beat you again. You got to get Meadows and Parker or Meadows and Carpenter and Green up with nobody on as much as possible. All right. So the Guardians are going to have a new TV situation next year. Major League Baseball is going to broadcast the games for them. So what that means is they're going to go out and they're going to negotiate with distributors. That's going to be, YouTube TV, satellite, cable, Spectrum, whatever you have. They're going to negotiate that for the Guardians. There's also going to be the MLB TV element, a direct-to-consumer app. So they have their digital rights back. Blackouts are over. So on the fan side of things, this is great. This means you're going to have access to streaming if you're a cord cutter. And it means you're also likely going to have more deals with local TV. This could mean Channel 3 or Channel 19 or whoever it's going to be. So this is good for fans in terms of access to the Guardians. There is another piece to it, however.
Yeah, so Cleveland in the last year of their contract got $60 million. So we don't know how much they are going to get from the deal with the networks and all of that stuff from the outside, like how much they'll get from DirecTV, how much they would get from the cable networks. I don't think it's going to be huge because if they were getting 60 million, if Bally's was getting 60 million, a lot of that was because they're trying to make a value play. So I don't think they're getting a ton. It's going to be some money. Just give you an idea. Just if so it's going to cost $100 a year. If Major League Baseball only keeps 20% of that, $20, which I bet they keep more, Cleveland would need to sell to get to 60 million. They would need 750,000 subscriptions. That's just not happening. Cleveland Akron area in 2023 was listed as about 1.4 million television households. People were like, hey, it's going to open them up to 4 million new subscribers. But that frankly isn't true. That's baloney. And why is it baloney? Because I would never buy this package, right? The host of Locked On Guardians is saying he would never pay for the Guardians TV package. Never, ever. I would never buy this package. Why would I never buy this package? Because for 20 more bucks, I can get everything. Like, I am out of market. If I pay $129 instead of $99, I can watch every baseball game and the minors. No one who really loves baseball is going to buy the out of market package. Like, it doesn't make any sense to. Why wouldn't you spend 20 bucks more to watch the minor league teams when they have fun prospects, to watch all of the games if something's going on? It's going to be a very low percentage of people. So when they made the whole deal, like they're moving from 1.4 available to over 4 million available. It's like, no, because people who love baseball are just going to be like, it's only 20 more bucks. I'll do that. And Cleveland doesn't get a share of that. So it's not actually, that's to me, a false thing to say. It's that expansion doesn't matter. Yeah, there's a few, don't get me wrong. There's definitely some people like, hey, I don't care, but I don't think it's going to net them that much. So I was trying to find data, and the Padres, I don't know where the data came from this one site, but they were claiming that they only had under 100,000 subscribers last year. So if Cleveland only had 100, you're looking at like 8 million plus whatever from the other place. I mean, I think there's a good chance with this new TV situation that baseball teams are actually going to, for the first time in a while, see their valuations go down, because I think we've hit the high water mark. And I think, they might have made 60. I think they'll be lucky to get to 80% of that value in their TV deal next year. They might be looking close to half.
Yeah, we are at the age where TV deals are no longer driving a significant portion of revenue, and Cleveland is now in that bucket, which is why ticket sales were important this year. And I don't know, maybe they can make up some ground. I'm not saying all of it, and advertising. If you have more eyeballs in terms of local.
Well, the
TV,
weird thing is MLB, I watch all my games on MLB.com. They have no advertisements outside of for themselves.
Yeah, I'm talking more like if they're on channel 3 or channel 19, if
but
there's
then
some advertising.
That's the network who gets that money. It would
That's
be
true. So there's no
it doesn't go
there,
to them. So they're not getting any advertising revenue. So that doesn't factor in either. So
yeah, it's gonna be interesting, and hopefully they keep our buddy Andre Knott, and I hope nobody loses their job because of this, truthfully. But we know we want Andre to stay, hopefully, and most of the other situations where this has been going on, they did keep their broadcast crew, so we'll see. But it is more fan friendly, but it is going to impact revenue, and revenue is just not a productive topic for us to talk about. No. It's unfortunate. All right, we'll be back on Thursday with you for a Game 3 recap, a Game 4 preview. Hopefully, we are talking about Tanner Bybee with the Guardians having a chance to go to the ALCS.
Yep, agreed. Thank you all for joining us, Tigers, Guardians fans. We hope you all enjoyed the fun. I'm going to, before I say my line, say, send him to Detroit. Tell me in the comments what that movie's from, and go Guardians, go.